this is something that.
Maybe if you sit closer to that side, they will see you when I turn the... Scusate, io switch da italiano a inglese. Solo che non si sono ancora collegati.
Vi aspettiamo,
Vediamo che dice. Ok. Eccovi. Maybe if you sit close to that side, they will see you.
Puoi anche sentire e vedere?
Italiano inglese. Ciao.
Ciao.
Solo che non si sono ancora collegati.
Mi sentite?
Sì, sì, vi sentiamo. Aspetta che colleghiamo agli speaker così vi sentiamo un po' meglio.
Sì, un attimo che anche noi ci finiamo di sistemare, che come al solito con Google ci vuole un po'. Okay.
Sì, ora vi sentiamo. Ciao. Ecco un po' dei nostri membri qui. Adesso colleghiamo agli speaker così ci sentiamo un po' meglio. Wait. Ok, mi sa che avete il link di YouTube aperto. So, hi guys, can you hear us?
Yes. Yeah, yes.
Hi. So, where does that come from? Wait a second. Sorry, we have. There is some extra sound that we should eliminate. Just a second. Okay, solved it. Sorry, guys.
It's okay now?
What you were hearing, where is it?
Yes, we had a little feedback, but now we are hearing you.
Sorry, guys. So what you were hearing was the speech of the YouTube link that we've created, where the other branches are watching us in streaming. So as I was speaking, also that one was speaking. So that was the problem. So here I am Damiano Ramazzotti. I work for Talent Garden, and we are now speaking from Milan. So here you have some of our members from Talent Garden Milan. And in the meantime, we have people from Genova who are listening to us, Pisa, Cosenza, and there's another couple of towns that I might be forgetting. So these are the other branches of our co-working space, where we have professionals in the digital sector who are guests in our space. We're a co-working space much like the Loft. I see Mona in the background. Hi there. And so our goal as a co-working space is to help and foster their growth. And so this is why we tried to set up this meeting, just to create a bridge. If I'm not mistaken, we also have a guy down there, the guy with the gray sweater, who is incorporating in Delaware soon, aren't you?
Well, it's a requisite from an accelerator in California, which is asking us to incorporate in Delaware.
Okay, so did you hear him? He says that he's incorporating next week in Delaware, because that's one of the requirements for an incubator that is his company is going to be incubated in. So he has a very specific interest about what you guys can tell him about that. And most of our startups have, of course, an international scope. So it is of a general interest to understand what are the opportunities in this regards. So I leave it to you guys to tell us a little bit more. Unless you have some questions.
Great. Okay, Damiano. I think what I wanted to do, my name is Frank DeSantis, and I run a business incubator here in Newcastle County in Delaware. But another part of my responsibilities is entrepreneurial advocacy. So I stay closely in touch with a lot of the partners and organizations that support business startups. And so I think what we wanted to do today was to introduce some of the resources that are available to international companies looking to set up here in Delaware, and to talk about some of the benefits of an international company starting in Delaware and locating when they're wanting to start doing business in the United States. I think probably the best is to start and introduce who we have around the table. I don't know who you can see. How much of the table can you see?
I can see from one person right on your right-hand side all the way to the left-hand side. I think I'm missing one person with a white shirt, of whom we only see an elbow. Yes, we saw an elbow waving.
Okay. We started working with several months ago, and she just walked out of the screen.
Sorry. I'm going to try to get closer.
So in that case, we'll skip her.
Sorry.
And we'll jump over.
Sorry, just a second. Voi sentite bene? Can you hear well? Let me just try to fix the sound a second. There are some technical... Okay.
We are trying to.
Perfect.
We are trying to let you see everyone. Just 1 second.
Perfect. It's hard to get you to see everybody because we have a kind of a weird shaped table, so I can show you bits and pieces. And yeah, some of the other guys, unfortunately, they can only write us to YouTube. Could you check on YouTube if they write us any comments? Okay, perfect. Okay.
I can move it, maybe. All right,
Okay.
so say hi, Paolo.
Ciao, Paolo.
Okay.
Semi-automatic camera.
Yes. All right.
Probably the best person to start us off is the person to my right, is Rebecca Faber. She's the president of the World Trade Center in Delaware. Probably the most experience of dealing with international companies. So I'll let her introduce herself and talk about some of the things that she does, and you could probably talk better the advantages to being here in Delaware.
Might actually leave that to Emma from the States.
Okay.
She just built a whole website on it. But good afternoon to those of you across the pond there. As Frank said,
sorry a second, guys. Can you hear well? Maybe. Sorry, we have some. Okay, try again now. Now it should be better. Sorry.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Does that work? No. Should I get close?
Yeah. I think that the problem is also that you're quite far away from the computer that you're speaking from, so that makes the audio a little bit weaker.
So I'll
Yeah, now I hear you very well.
Does this work?
Perfect, perfect.
So my name is Rebecca Faber. I'm with the World Trade Center here in Delaware. And our role is to help companies with their international business. We do that with companies that are here and looking to go abroad, and also with companies from foreign countries who are looking to come to the U.S. market to establish themselves. We work a lot with what we see as 3 different levels of companies, kind of the market curious who are just exploring the U.S. market and maybe just incorporate, the market ready who come in and they're more ready to go and incorporate and are looking for potential buyers or partners here, and then market active who are already driving revenue from the U.S. market and looking to expand. So our focus is really on supporting whatever it is that's happening internationally, and it's pretty wide-ranging. We cover a lot of different industries, and we work with a lot of different partners, many of whom are around the table here. So I think that pretty much sums it up.
Perfect.
We also have, Emma, why don't you go next? From the state of Delaware, our Department of State, Emin Cowdery, can tell you a little bit about what we're doing here in the state of Delaware itself.
Yeah. Hello, my name is Emma. I work with the Division of Corporate and International Development. So what we do is we reach out to businesses around the world and tell them why Delaware is so great to incorporate. So we're thrilled to hear that someone right in your room is incorporating next week. That's our goal. Like I said, we do outreach, but we also want to assist and provide information and help people start the process, whatever you need along the way to start your business in Delaware, whether it's just incorporating or setting up a full U.S. office. That's what we provide. A little bit about the Delaware Advantage. Over 64% of the Fortune 500 companies in the nation are incorporated in Delaware, and that's because of our general corporation law, which is, you may have known, it's world-renowned. It's very business-friendly, and that's what attracts so many people here. We want to make sure businesses are equipped to do business and not to fill out legal paperwork. That's our goal. So whatever we can do to make it.
So what you're saying is that there's also an element of simplification into the process. So the process is also easier.
Yes, exactly. We have online forms, and a lot of it is online now to make it more accessible around the world, and that's the key as well. We are one of the only states that can do incorporations very quickly, within an hour. And
an hour?
Yep.
I just asked the room how much time it takes to incorporate in Italy, and the only answer I got was people laughing. So.
Well, that's good to hear.
Okay. Why don't we just go right around the table with addition.
Hello, my name is John Graham. I'm with Corporation Service Company. We're a 115-year-old company that has been providing entity formation services here in Delaware and across the United States. And we provide the registration services in Delaware and in all 50 states, including Washington, D.C. We work with over 90% of the Fortune 500s because they do incorporate so often here in Delaware, and we're located right here. We provide many of the services that they need in the United States and around the world with folks. So we look forward to the opportunity of working with you all.
Lovely.
Hi, my name is Adam Nieslis. I work at a CPA firm here in Wilmington, Delaware.
Sorry, could you get a little bit closer, or get the computer a little bit closer? Sorry. Poi se avete delle domande magari me le dite, io le ripeto.
Hi, my name is Adam Nieslis. I work with a CPA firm here in Wilmington, Delaware. We have a nice international section. We deal with clients from all over Europe, you know, the UK, a lot of clients there. Australia, New Zealand, Asia. We like to assist with the U.S. tax filing requirements. We don't like doing too much of the actual internet, like the other countries' stuff. We do with the U.S. filing requirements, sales tax, income tax, payroll tax. I know a big concern for a lot of companies coming over here. They're not sure what they're subject to. We like to assist with those aspects.
Cool. Lovely.
Yes, I'm there.
Hello.
Mike Rossi. I'm with the United States Small Business Administration. I have dual roles with the SBA. My job primarily is to assist our small businesses here in Delaware to obtain financing to help them grow and start and expand their businesses. They also have a dual role as the International Trade Officer, where I work with our partners to increase our exporting. I also chair a committee with the SBA, with all of our, which is why I'm here, with all of our state, local, and other federal partners to help assist our companies grow and do business internationally. to kind of do things both ways. We have a group of about 9 to 10 organizations on that committee.
Lovely.
Hi.
Hello, we know each other.
How are you?
Good.
My name is Mona Parikh, and I am the managing director of Started Up Delaware, and we also manage a co-working space called The Loft, which is where we are all now. So it's a pleasure to talk to all of you. Basically, our role and the reason we were started was to give help and support and assistance to startups, entrepreneurs, and tech-oriented developers and graphic designers and other creatives. And so part of our mission is to cultivate this grassroots community by putting on events and programs that are geared towards, teaching our community, what it's like to be an entrepreneur, giving them a little bit of insight and perspective into some of the more technical classes and maybe how to build a website. But generally speaking, what we do is we act as a resource for startups. So I know you're familiar with, how co-working works, but one of the greatest things about being here in Delaware is, I get to sit around in a room full of people, most of whom I've already met and who I know, and it's easy for us to connect the startups to anyone who they might need help from. And in Delaware, we always say it's 1 degree of separation instead of 6 degrees. So connecting somebody to a resource is just a lot more efficient and easier here in Delaware because we're smaller. So, so yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you for having us. Thank you.
And I'm back. And I want to just reinforce what Mona said. And I think what we're trying to portray here today is the support network that you have here in Delaware, because not only of our experience and our expertise with dealing with incorporation and corporate services, but the smallness of the state enables a network to be built. If you didn't hear me before, I run a business incubator which has an international soft landings component. So while Mona provides the co-working space, I provide a little bit more permanent space, as well as a support network for a business that is looking for space to occupy while they're figuring out the best markets, the best approach, and what they ultimately need. So together, the message I think we want to leave you with today, I'm sure you have some questions. We'll answer a lot of those questions, but that the message is that we are a tight-knit enough group here in Delaware that as you have questions, we can get them quickly to the right person who can help you. So I think from a day-to-day support area between Rebecca Faber in the World Trade Center, myself with the Emerging Enterprise Center, and Mona Parikh with the Coin Loft co-working space, we've got your day-to-day operational needs, and then with the other folks that you heard from, we've got the technical expertise and support to help you get set up and move forward strategically.
Lovely. So,
one more. We got Paolo. Paolo's going to jump in here a second and
yes.
some of his experiences.
Yes. I want to jump in just for 1 second because all these guys around here are the ones that you really need. But there is one piece missing that it is where usually we step in as the International Council of Delaware. I support the International Council of Delaware to create connection with Italy. And I think that the key point is...
Paolo, I will repeat this out loud because it was not very clear. Paolo is Italian, so he's specifically, that you could, as I said, Paolo is Italian, they started laughing and said, yes, we understood that. And
yes, he's...
relationship with Italy. So he's also like kind of the go-to person. He has 2 emails. Delaware is good for business and Italy is good for business.
Okay, so now you shared all my secrets. I thought that nobody could have guessed that I am Italian. I speak perfect English. Now, kidding aside, there is a very important thing that it must be remembered that when Emma was talking about incorporating online, there is the typical mismatch that can happen. Different cultures. She was giving for granted that, okay, incorporating online is 1 hour, 1 day, or 1 week, depending on how much you want to pay. Incorporating online on the Italian side basically had no meaning because it could take 3 months to incorporate, even if we can do it in Italy. So it is always very important to make sure that somebody helps you as a cultural mediator to be sure that the two sides speaks the same language, because we think we know the way American works and vice versa, but there are a lot of differences in our mentality.
Yeah, this is actually the first question that I wanted to ask about, because it's something that when you and I chatted first, you mentioned the fact that there is a cultural difference. And also when I went to San Francisco, I talked to another state business that works on lending of foreign companies, and they also mentioned this, that there is a cultural aspect to take into account. So my first question would be, can you tell us more about that? What are the cultural differences that we need to take into account when moving to US? What's relevant in this sense?
Should I start and then someone... Well, I can tell my experience.
Okay.
Of course, I can start from the fact that the Delaware system works. I've been here for 7 years. I keep being here. I have some business in other sides of the United States, but Delaware is a great place to start. And it is very difficult to pinpoint specific cultural differences because they are not so much on high end, but they are mainly in the everyday things. So really, you need to experience. My advice for many Italian companies: come here, run a 1-year-long test, and then you start with a, let's say, with a test LLC. Here in Delaware, you can create an LLC in really no time. You can close it in no time, no many streams.
LLC stands for?
Sorry? LLC is the same is mainly the same of our SRL.
Okay.
Limited liability company. So it's the same concept of our SRL, but it is much easier to manage it here. So really, this is a place when you can try, and people is mostly helpful. And really, this is the best advice that I can give, because you will come here, you will find that day-by-day activities are very different. For example, you want to incorporate a company. In Italy, there is the statuto, that's more or less the operating agreement. You need a notary. It's mandatory by law. You expect that you have to describe everything you are going to do, and you are bound to that. In Delaware, if you read their corporate law, it says that you can have your operating agreement just as a verbal agreement between partners, but it is not advised to do so. It's better if you write something. Okay. So, very often, Italian people expect that actions, activities here in Delaware's interaction with the authorities are way more complicated than it is. And someone has to explain that, no, it's very, very, very easy to do that. But this is just an example. I think that practice, day-by-day practice, is what teaches you what's going different for your business.
Yeah.
And
don't know if anyone would say there's an independent company.
Io poi vado avanti a fare domande, però se voi ce ne avete ditemelo.
Rebecca wants to add something.
No. So I just want to add a little bit to what Paolo said. I think one of the large differences here is the role of the government and the private sector. The private sector is largely that it's more active, but for example, many of the business organizations that you get involved in are private sector here. When I apologize, I just lost my train of thought. Give me one moment. Also, as Paolo mentioned the Delaware law, there's not a national law for incorporation. It's state by state. So Delaware has purposely made our laws around incorporation and business formation and doing business in general very business friendly. The other benefit is that when you're here, and Paolo alluded to this as well, when you're here doing business in Delaware, or if you're simply incorporated and this is your initial presence, you can do business anywhere else in the United States. And there are folks here, some of them around this table, and others who we can all connect you to, who can help you determine the requisite licenses, the local tax structures, the hiring procedures, all of that stuff that you need in order to settle in as a business. And then further to that, there are considerations if you're bringing people over and they're going to be living here. They're going to be living here with their families. We've got folks who can help you identify good places to live, to rent or buy, school districts, and that kind of thing.
So you also basically support soft landing of the person that comes there.
That expatriate kind of support for people coming in.
Yeah.
So it's very important to us that you feel when you come over here that you have a friend here, and that's in the United States. You'll find a lot. I think a big cultural difference is that there's a lot of business and people are very busy and moving from one thing to the other very fast, and there isn't quite as much focus on relationship as I see when I'm in Europe, particularly in Italy. But in Delaware, it's very important to us that if you are coming here to do business, that you feel you have that support system, that all of us as resources become your business family here to support whatever it is that you want to do.
Okay, I have a question, because when I imagine Delaware, because essentially, at least when I see Delaware, it's always in the bottom of some document where it says incorporated in Delaware, you know? And so what you imagine is all these companies who are doing stuff somewhere else, and then basically a piece of paper in Delaware, just some, like, this is, at least in my mind, that's what I had imagined until now. It's simply a place where these companies are purely there on a fiscal basis. So my question is, to what extent is it like that, and to what extent does it make sense to have, for example, only your incorporation in Delaware and your business elsewhere, or vice versa, to have it all there? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. So to answer your first question, there are a lot of instances where this is their headquarters in name only, and it's not so much just on a piece of paper. Generally, they have an office, albeit it's probably a small one with a desk and a telephone, and a little thing on the door, and likely no one there except for a couple of days in the year. So there are a lot of instances where the headquarters of companies actually look like that here in Delaware. But there are also plenty of instances where we have companies that are doing quite a bit here. There are companies that are only domiciled and doing business in Delaware, and then there are a lot that are doing business in Delaware and elsewhere throughout the United States and elsewhere throughout the world. Your second question, I just forgot that.
How much does it make sense? You know, what's the...
in a moment. But I think she can talk about the specifics related to why you want to incorporate here. But I think really how much it makes sense depends on what it is you're trying to do, who your target market is, where your target market is, and the types of people that you need to be around. Certainly in Delaware, we have a very educated population. There are a lot of researchers and former researchers here for the bioscience community. There's a sort of beginnings of a very strong tech community here. From Delaware, logistically speaking, if you have products that you're trying to distribute to the U.S. population, you can reach a third of the U.S. population within a one-day drive. So there are a lot of really good aspects of being in here, but depending on what you're doing and how closely you need to be to your clients to be servicing them, or who the clients are and what they're doing, that varies a great deal. But you know, we're here to help you in Delaware, but we're also here, to the extent that it makes sense for your company to be successful, to help you make the connections outside the state that you need to make. So I'm going to let
for some companies, it actually does make a lot of sense to locate in Delaware. And because of the convenient location, like Rebecca
said.
Sorry,
can you get closer? We cannot hear you very well. Sorry.
For a lot of companies, it does make sense to locate your presence in Delaware, and that's because of our convenient location. We're only about a 2-hour drive from New York City, and if you wanted to reach the New York market but pay half price, you come to Delaware, because your office space will be about half the cost, and your labor costs and any other utility costs, and even to live in the area, it's going to be much more affordable. So you save a lot in overhead. That's a huge advantage. And the infrastructure surrounding Delaware is really great for distribution. We're close to 6 international airports, and as well as our highway system right here, there's always easy access and a lot less traffic than New York City or Philadelphia. Yeah. So it makes a lot of sense, depending again on your target market. If you're targeting the Mid-Atlantic or even the East Coast, Delaware makes a lot of sense. And we've seen some really big international companies succeed in Delaware. For instance, Amazon has a distribution warehouse here. We have lots of global brands of banks, like the Royal Bank of Canada, Deutsche Bank, huge companies, and they've found a lot of success here because of our infrastructure, our location, and other things like that, as well as our very talented workforce, as Rebecca touched on. We have some of the most sophisticated workforce, one of the most sophisticated workforces in the country. We have the most advanced degrees, especially in science or bioscience and technology. So you can come to Delaware and find all the little pieces that you need for your business. And you can do it for a better dollar than anywhere else in the U.S. for the most part.
And in regards instead to simply incorporation, what are the advantage, what is the value, other than speed, of merely the fact of incorporating and maybe having the desk and the telephone? Why companies do that?
The benefit of incorporating in Delaware is that you have access to the Court of Chancery, which is the governing court for Delaware corporations. And they have basically written the case law and determined the guidelines for corporations in Delaware, and whoever has copied it over the years as well. So our courts, it's a completely separate than a regular court that dissolves family issues or other things. It's a court specifically designated for corporations.
Avete sentito cosa ha detto? I court, come si dice? Dove gli aspetti legali, quando vai, come si dice court?
Corti, il corte costituzionale.
No, non la corte, sorry, I'm just making sure that it was clear. Quando fai una causa, vai in court, come si dice? Cioè, è il tribunale, cioè hanno dei tribunali particolarmente efficaci perché hanno un sistema. Ecco Paolo, scusa, cercavo la parola, volevo essere sicuro che fosse chiaro il termine court.
C'è bisogno di un secondo con la traduzione di questo concetto che è importantissimo. Let me help translate. Allora, in Delaware, la ragione della registrazione di così tante compagnie qui in Delaware, in Italia si pensa che sia per ragioni fiscali. Quelle aiutano, ma non sono il fattore chiave. Ci sono altri stati che danno le stesse agevolazioni fiscali. Il motivo principale è la presenza della Court of Chancery, che è un tipo di tribunale dedicato esclusivamente al business e che è il più efficiente degli Stati Uniti, di gran lunga. Quindi qui la durata delle cause in ambito corporate business si misura al massimo in un paio di mesi come media. Casi complicatissimi, tipo quello del Dipartimento della Giustizia contro Microsoft di 20 anni fa, è durato 18 mesi, e quello è il caso mostra. Quindi questa grande velocità nel gestire i giudizi, insieme a una grande stabilità nei giudizi, per cui di fatto gli avvocati sanno già come va a finire se entrano in causa, allora questa certezza del tempo e della natura del giudizio è un asset fondamentale per le imprese ed è il motivo per cui si incorporano qui. Questo è quello che Emma stava spiegando e che è importante sottolineare.
Ok.
Sorry, you're welcome.
So does that help answer your question?
Yes, absolutely. No, you did as well, but I just wanted to make sure that there was nothing lost in translation.
Oh, definitely. I'm glad. Here's Frank.
Yeah, just I want to go a little deeper on what Emma was saying from a logistical standpoint. The 2 hours from New York, we're also about 2 hours from Washington, D.C. So there are 4 major cities within that 2-hour radius: Baltimore, Washington, Philadelphia, and New York. So with the rail, airport, and highway system, most companies can access a large majority of the U.S. population from Delaware, and as Emma mentioned, at the cost of living, not only personal living, but the taxes, much less than they would experience anywhere else. The other thing that we've mentioned a couple of times, and you've mentioned it, is this idea of a soft landing. And in most business endeavors, you tend to start off a little small to test the waters. And I think with everything we've put together here, enables a company to do that. They have an opportunity to incorporate in a place that is going to be favorable to a corporation, establish a minimal presence if necessary, to understand where their markets will be, and without investing heavily up front, have time to develop their strategy and plans, and therefore locate, hopefully here in Delaware, on a more permanent basis.
Is it obligatory to have a person physically residing in Delaware to incorporate in Delaware?
It's Emma again.
All you need to incorporate in Delaware is a Delaware address. And this doesn't mean you need to lease the property. You can actually, you have to find somebody, contract with somebody who can provide that service, which is actually just like the corporation company or a corporation service company, which John Cream actually takes care of.
So it's like a virtual office?
Yes,
like a post box.
The registered agent who will provide that Delaware address, that requirement, will serve a couple different functions for the company. Not so much a satellite office, but they'll just collect service of process, and they'll collect other pieces of mail for the company.
Okay. And voi avete delle domande?
Well, yeah. This is pretty. Let's say that
we have a question. He will say it, but then I'll re-say it in case it's not clear. Avvicinati.
Okay.
Second.
If they are doing it, then why?
Hello. So basically right now, I mean, this process of discussing with an accelerator in California or incorporation in Delaware, because part of the requirements that they give us was to incorporate in Delaware anyway. So the thing is, for sure, they have told us about all the a bit about the benefits of incorporating in Delaware and how there are some companies that help us having this, let's say, physical address for the postal service, and also some services related to, for example, the filling of the income statement, the help with the income statement, balance sheet, and so on, and all these services. But let's say that our concern right now is just to not lose control of what is going on down there. And from the other side is, let's say, we won't be in Delaware at all. That's for sure. Maybe we will be somewhere else. We don't know where. They have different co-working places, but just to the bottom line, let's say, of the question is, or the conclusion more than a question is, for me it's a relief to understand that there are some services like you, some organizations and so on that give help to and where we can address the questions. And for sure that right now my interest right now is to meet you, just to understand that you exist, and to go with you, because we don't want, for sure, have only one side of perspective or point of view, that it's the one from the accelerator. But yeah, that's pretty much the.
Great. Well, you can always reach out to us with any questions you have about Delaware specifically. Anyone around this table would love to help out.
Yeah, probably right now it's very difficult to me to formulate a single question, because the problem is that we don't have many. We don't understand right now what is going to be of us, and we only know that we have to incorporate in quite soon, because we will start the process of acceleration soon. So.
Well,
but to understand that it's something easy and that there are the support, that's enough for now. So I appreciate that.
What is the name of the business incubator?
We cannot hear you. Sorry. Can you speak louder?
What is the name of the business incubator you're working with?
Why is it?
What's the name of the business?
Sì, come si chiama la tua azienda?
Food Square. Ours, or the accelerator in the States?
The accelerator.
The accelerator.
One Traction.
Oh.
Do you know?
Are you familiar with it?
Actually, no, but I'm glad they're familiar with us.
I would be more than happy to meet any other proposals. If you have any. Always available for a pitch or whatsoever.
No, I'm glad that they're directing you to Delaware, and I'm glad we could talk today so you know more about why they require Delaware. So that's great.
Yeah, well, for sure, we know that we will have to write down a bylaw, or I mean, there are a lot of things, and our concern right now is Delaware is very, let's say, permissive in the way you can have the agreements between the shareholders and so on, because anyway we have to give a warrant to this accelerator, you know, promising a 3% of equity and so on, blah blah blah. But the thing is, we want to be sure that we have the correct templates and to write down a bylaw or an operational agreement as it has to be. Because more, I don't know. From this point of view, we are quite afraid because we need help with the.
So what's
with
one
the
to do if one is in this situation? What would be your advice?
You need help writing your operating agreement. Is that correct?
Exactly. For example.
Okay.
Writing down our bylaw and of course our I don't know all these kind.
Yeah. Typically in Delaware, our businesses will use a lawyer for that, a corporation lawyer. And then the SBDC, which is the Small Business Technology Development Center, they also will help you write your bylaws. So that is a federal organization, and so there should be one in California that I would recommend. Yeah, several in California that would help you write those, and they'll know the California requirements.
We also.
And as well as registered agents, they provide that service as well. So a lot of companies will either use, like I said, a corporation lawyer or their registered agent. And to be honest, we like to recommend the registered agents because they provide those two services. They provide the Delaware address, which is required, and they provide assistance with that type of paperwork.
Okay, and one last question, and it's very concrete question. If we incorporate in Delaware, what are the, let's say, costs actually of being there without, let's say, any profit for the first year or anything like that? Because it's a possibility that maybe we are the first year we are just setting up everything and so on. So, for example, for a team of 4 co-founders or something like that, what are the actual costs in terms of taxes, health securities, and so on?
Okay, it all depends really on the type of business you're doing, but it'll cost about $90 to $130 to just file the incorporation paperwork. Of course, if you're using a lawyer or a service, they're going to charge their fees.
Yeah, sure.
And then there are annual franchise taxes associated with incorporating. So whatever type of corporation or company you set up, there will be an annual fee, but it's minimal, depending again on how you file. And then once you get into income or operating, then we have no way of calculating those numbers now, but it'll depend from there.
Yeah, but I mean, I think the question is mainly if you have 0 income, because that's kind of the situation of all of ours at this initial stage.
Yeah, it's like what are the cost of having
a dormant company, let's say.
Dormant company in Delaware. So.
Hi, I'm Stephanie. I'm from the local accounting for Belfast Lines and Schumann. Many states, depending on the state that you form in, many states do assess a minimum tax, regardless of whether there's profit or not. California does assess a minimum tax.
Could you get closer? Sorry.
It's about $800 a year.
800
in California. Every state is different.
Okay.
Delaware has no minimum tax other than the annual franchise tax for the right to stay in business.
So I'm going to jump in here very quickly with my friend. So to Stephanie's point right there, because Delaware has no annual tax on that, if you're coming to this market to explore and you incorporate here in Delaware, a great way to do it is, as Paul mentioned, incorporate.
Sorry, I didn't understand. The connection broke off a little bit. Sorry.
An option is to incorporate here and take that first to explore while you're not being taxed in Delaware. Your expenses are really minimal. And then determine where you want to go and how you want to set up in places like California or elsewhere. You want to make sure that California is in fact where you want to be. Maybe there's another option of being in Phoenix, Arizona, but wherever you want to. My point is that being in Delaware is minimal cost to begin with, just to incorporate. And it gives you that buffer while you don't have revenue to explore what's next most viable step for your company.
Cioè, nel senso, ho detto essenzialmente che il Delaware è un ottimo primo punto in cui stare, soprattutto nel momento in cui uno fattura, quando uno non sa poi dove andare a mettere la base per delle proprie operazioni, in quella fase in cui magari uno non fattura, in cui i costi sono minimi. anche in altri paesi, se sei anche in altri stati se sei dormente costa poco, però in Delaware evidentemente è più semplice in questo senso.
Indicativamente costi?
So, you... Sì, parlavano di 800. Sì. Ok.
Da Milano.
Eccoci, vai. Tradotto bene?
Yes, I just wanted to give you an idea, because I've been also the other side of the table, so I know the kind of question that you can have. To give you an example, if you come here in Delaware to incorporate an LLC, which is the easiest way to incorporate, you just incorporate, you don't make an activity for the moment, so it's dormant. In that case, you pay $250 a year as franchise tax.
Okay.
You pay something to the registered agent that can cost between a couple of $100 to $300, $400, $500, depending on the kind of services, on average, of course. And for incorporation, if you don't have really any specific needs, but your company will have in that case, if you don't have any specific needs, still you are talking about spending a few $100s to get the minimum assistance to get incorporated. You could do it online on your own, but it is better to get some assistance. So, all in all, the first year, considering the costs of incorporation and any other cost, would cost you about $1,000, all included, okay? Just to give you a reference.
Ha detto poi la somma di tutte queste cose è 1.000 euro, facendo una somma del costo per incorporare, poi una tassa annuale e poi magari un supporto nella fase di incorporazione.
Quindi al massimo.
Sì, diciamo più o meno al massimo. Ci sentite ancora? Can you hear us? Can you still hear us?
Yes, we can.
Okay, you're just frozen, but it's good to know that you can hear us. Do you guys have any questions? Okay, we have a question, but I'll have to help with translation.
Hi.
Vai, dimmi.
Volevo sapere qual è la loro eccellenza, cioè se loro hanno un'eccellenza
come mercato, come...
Sì, può essere l'automotive piuttosto
Ok.
che la farmaceutica, e se l'agricoltura è un qualcosa che da loro va come settore, se loro investono in agricoltura.
Vuoi fare l'agricoltrice?
Sì, certo.
Okay. So we have a question. The question is, apart from the issue of incorporation and all that, is there some key industries in Delaware which are particularly important, you know, like automotive, food, or whatever? And second question is whether what's the role of agriculture in Delaware? I know it's an unexpected question from a tech co-working space, but
my business is in this direction.
So yeah, her business is in the field of agriculture, so she would like to know what are the industries and what is the role of agriculture.
Okay. I will turn the camera and let them understand. I will just give you one first good reason to be in Delaware.
Wait a second, let me fix the audio. Sorry. Okay, try speaking again, sorry.
Okay. Can you hear us now? Hello?
Eccoci, vai. Vicino. Sì, we can hear you.
I will let them give the specific answer to your question. I just want to tell a very quick thing before. For many businesses, the best reason of being in Delaware is this. Last week, I was in New York City to make some business in Manhattan, let's say Penn Station, central Manhattan. I had to stay in Brooklyn every day. It was on average 1 hour to reach Manhattan from Brooklyn, which is still New York City. From Wilmington Station to Penn Station is 90 minutes every day. And to reach the center of Philadelphia is about 30 minutes, and just because the trains are always late. Baltimore is 1 hour. Okay, so this is a key reason for being in Wilmington. It's a big advantage. And then
about the specific other answers, they can answer better than me. I don't know who wants to answer that. Rebecca is coming to answer.
So in terms of the industries where we're strong, obviously financial services is a big area for us. Legal services is big with the prevalence of corporations here. But we're very strong, as I mentioned before, strong life sciences industry. So anything in the bioscience field, medical devices, a lot of both large companies doing research and smaller companies researching and coming up with new products a lot. The agricultural industry is predominantly around poultry, around chickens. The Delaware Peninsula is one of the largest chicken producers in the United States. For the state of Delaware, I believe we have about 300 chickens for every person that lives here. So it's a fairly strong industry. We make a lot of jokes about chickens. But we do a lot of export chickens all over the world, to Asia, Russia, maybe not so many to Russia right now, and elsewhere. The other area, because of the chicken industry being so strong, we are also very strong in terms of vaccines and veterinary types of products. So back when avian influenza was a big issue, one of our big successes was being the first state in the United States that was allowed to export poultry into Taiwan and into China, based on our vaccine companies here and our technology around that. So I don't think am I missing anything? And yeah, well, participate. Not so much anymore. There used to be. I'm not sure how many companies we still have that were suppliers to.
Sorry, we missed the last sentence. Could you repeat?
The automotive industry used to be very big. That's been dwindling. As Emma just pointed out, distribution has become large. Amazon has one of their main distribution facilities here. One of the wonderful things about Delaware is sales tax. So companies that they're selling a lot of products, that's a really wonderful benefit here as well.
Okay, c'è la distribuzione.
Okay. So, and if I may, I got a LinkedIn request from Stefano, who I'm guessing is in your room somewhere there. Is there Stefano?
Stefano Peruzzi, probably. He's following us from YouTube, not from here live. If Stefano Peruzzi, he's probably from Padova. Is it possible?
I think you're right. I think you're right. So if maybe else would like to jump on that.
Per informazione avevamo un'altra domanda su Facebook, ma hanno risposto mentre.
Okay. So we also had a question that was asked on Facebook, but apparently you've already answered it as you were speaking. So. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, someone else was also asking from Facebook about the prices, but they got their answer. So I have one more question, but do you have any? Okay, so my personal final question would be, and this is, I don't know if this is a question that makes sense in the US, but let's say my company is in California, to make it easier. Where do I pay taxes? In California, in Delaware, you have one revenue system, one tax system. How does that work?
That's not an easy question. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. In the United States, we have two levels of tax. We have the federal level, where you pay the United States tax, and then there is a state level of tax. There could also be a city level, depending on the city.
Okay.
You pay taxes to the states depending on where you physically are, where you have sales, where you have employees, and where you have property. That's income tax. There's also a sales tax that most states assess, and that has a different level of presence necessary. We have 50 states, and every state has its own rules for how you've come to be in that state. So what we as advisors do with a business is work with them prior to entering the state, prior to making a sale in the state, prior to opening a warehouse, even if it's a third-party distributor, a pick and pack sort. We will work with them and then research that state's rules to see what the requirements are. No one can know all 50 states' rules. It's a specialization in itself.
And this is an even more complicated question.
Oh, good.
Italy, where do I pay the taxes? In the sense, what if I'm incorporated in Delaware, and maybe the Delaware company owns an Italian company here in Italy, you know, or has a legal branch. So I'm quite sure Italy will want me to pay as many taxes as possible, but do I also owe some taxes to Delaware, and by what logic in general, if it can be answered simply?
No. So the United States and Italy have a tax treaty where you don't pay tax on the same income twice. That said, if you form a corporation, not an LLC, if you form a corporation in the United States, the U.S. has a system of worldwide income taxation. So no matter where in the world that U.S. corporation's business is, it'll be taxed in the U.S. And then you take a reduction of your U.S. tax for whatever you pay in Italy. It is as if it is a U.S. citizen resident. It was born here. If it's an LLC, it's a little bit different, and we could get into that if it becomes relevant. LLCs are taxed to the individual, not the entity, so then it's based on where the individual is resident.
Okay. Yeah, so what if I had an LLC in the US? Let's say, because this is also what happened to me. I incorporated in England, so I have an LLC. And I needed to do that because I needed to have an easy, quick incorporation. I need to make some stock options, which was not possible to do at the time with the equivalent of an LTD. And, which I guess is similar to LLC from what Paolo mentioned, more or less. And the point is that at this point, what will happen is that I will, if I start to make money, what I will do is that I'll create an Italian company, but as long as all the production resides in Italy, I have to pay taxes in Italy, which is of course not very convenient for me, because if I was in England, I would pay less for them. But at this moment, our operations is fully in Italy. So we have the LTD purely because it's easier for investors, it's easier for a certain amount of things. Now, if I had the same thing in England, in the US, so I have a LLC, which I use if I need to find an investor in the US, if I need to make some stock option agreements and so on and so forth. But I have then in Italy all the production. It would go the same way, basically. I would pay to the States. With the LLC, how would I manage at that point?
In that situation, you're covered under the treaty because your permanent establishment is outside of the United States. But you must file an income tax return to take that treaty position.
Okay, but so with an LLC, as long as I am personally residing in the country, I pay according to the country, as long as I clearly communicate the taxes that I'm paying.
Correct. As long as nothing is in the United States. You have income to report, but then the treaty eliminates it. But you must file to do that.
And last question, how often does that happen?
How often does what happen? That there be a treaty claim?
In the States, and then a company that makes revenue somewhere else?
I'd say better than 75% of my clients do that.
Okay, good to know. I heard some sounds in the back.
Yeah.
Lovely. Okay, so on our part, I think there is no more questions. Most of the questions on other channels have been anyway answered. If you want, I mean, probably we didn't get into it, so I'll just briefly tell you 2 words about Talent Garden and what we are. Maybe it is of interest for you in other respects. So just to fill you in, Talent Garden, I don't know if Paolo told you, is a network of co-working spaces. So we are in Italy, we're the largest networks. We have 8 spaces. So we have about 460 talents working in the digital sector, startups, agencies, freelancers, in the digital and creative industries. The thing which is interesting is that now we're opening internationally. So we announced today that we're opening in Lithuania and Luxembourg. So you're probably going to have a little bit of competition with Luxembourg there. But just to let you know that the way we work now is that we're trying to build connections between these different branches. We actually were selected by the city of New York as one of the top 5 ideas to innovate South Manhattan from the digital standpoint. We won a big contest. Unfortunately, the administration changed. So the support that we had before was not as much, but that's fine. So just to tell you that our interest is to bring all these different connections also to other countries. So if it's okay for you, if somebody from Lithuania will ask me about Delaware, I'll probably still forward them an email from you, and vice versa. As we expand, we'll keep you posted on that. If you're looking for ways to support people in these countries or in different areas of Italy, or in different countries, our goal is to expand our reach so that we can also kind of be intermediaries for these kind of support. So just to let you know a little bit about that.
Great, great. And Damiano, we can work out between Rebecca and I will figure out an email that can be used as that single point of contact. As I said before, we have a close enough connection with all of our relationships that if we can funnel questions, we can get it to the right person to answer for any of the folks that you have. So I'll communicate with you afterwards and we'll figure that out.
Lovely, lovely. So thanks a lot, guys. It was really great. It was really interesting. I'm sorry the other people cannot say hi because they're not on webcam, but I'm quite sure they're very thankful. And I hope to eventually meet you somewhere there or you guys here. If you come to Milan, please come and visit.
I like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Everyone, for coming.